when I know we're serious. He's worked on that gesture.
Good night, Mom. All right, welcome to this month's edition of your Cincinnati Public Schools Policy and Equity Committee. It's nice to see we got a couple folks in attendance. And we will just dive right into the agenda after we do a quick round of introductions. And remind me, who can the people see at home right now, Rob? They can just see us three?
Just the three of you.
All right, well, then we'll introduce the three of us. So to my right, we have, and to my left,
Eve Bolton, board member.
and we have our general counsel in the audience, and our IT director, and our fearless board assistant and general counsel staff. So thanks so much for being here, and we'll just dive right in. So the first item on the agenda is the 2-year school calendar. We are not going to discuss a tremendous amount about this. Just as a reminder, it had gotten bounced to this committee, and it was discussed, and we have calendars, and it is now getting bounced back to Student Achievement Committee, and that's really the only reason it's on here. I don't know if either one of my colleagues want to say anything about it. We just wanted it on the record. Anybody?
I would just contribute a couple things. One is that it got on here indirectly as a result, first of all, because we were dealing with the Juneteenth addition to the calendar, and also reminding administration that board staff had worked on including, and I think Dr. Moffitt was involved with this as well, and as was I, including a more lengthier list of holidays because affecting those holidays, and we hadn't necessarily seen that show up. And so that then led to the question about the school calendar, which had not been dealt with in student achievement as well. And so it was back that second month, I think. They brought it back after we raised that issue. It belongs in student achievement. I'm glad student achievement's reassuming responsibility for it. I would, though, for the record say, I think we do believe as a policy committee about putting the additional holidays on our 12-month calendar that goes to our families, to our households in the district. And then also my concern about going an extra year in is a year beyond the CFT contract's length. And this calendar is a negotiated item between the administration and the CFT. And I would assume that I believe we should probably keep that as an item in negotiations. Mm-hmm. And who knows where we'll be in 2 or 3 years regarding what the years look like. So I just would make sure that remains in the record, but glad SAC is taking it back.
Appreciate the context. Thank you, Member Bolton. Dr. Muff, do you have anything to add? Or
no, I think it probably needs to go back there because they've got ownership of that, and it just makes sense. So I'm all for that, and sorry that we stepped on toes because apparently we did. So yeah, I think that's where it needs to be.
Okay. So attendance boundary lines is our second agenda item. Now with attendance boundary lines, there are a few policies that are germane to those, namely 5113.01 and 5113.03 and 5120. The attendance boundary line issue has been one that has been discussed since I've been on this board, which 5 years ago in student achievement it was discussed, and it's been discussed in finance, and it's been discussed in this committee for the past few meetings. And so regarding those three policies that sort of dictate the different offerings we have, enrollment in neighborhood schools, and kick it over to general counsel to take it from here. We can chat about these a little bit. You may recall our last meeting, we had maps up looking at the actual attendance boundary lines, which have not been affected, I think, noteworthy to state in quite some time. So in the district, while it's changed a great deal, attendance boundary lines really haven't. So.
And after, if I could, after we talk about the policies and look at them for, as you say, the second time they've been before us, even this year, I think. If there's any additional kind of map issues that would be good to demonstrate some things, or at least to give Jeremy the opportunity or tell what we might be interested
Absolutely.
in seeing, that would be great. But the policy work is critical.
Absolutely. And yeah, our IT director, Jeremy, if you had been here the last meeting, you'll remember he showed us some really great interactive ways to look at these maps. So we're glad to have you here again today for that work as well. So kick it over to General Counsel first.
Yeah, I attached to the agenda just 3 of the attendance policies because we had gotten some questions back from board members about our policies with respect to enrollment in magnet schools, enrollment in high school schools of choice, and then I also included our neighborhood elementary. So those are the 3 major buckets of schools we have: neighborhood elementaries, elementary magnets, and then high schools of choice. Obviously, those were reviewed extensively, like as you said, probably 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Glad to answer any questions on those, and then obviously Jeremy's here as well to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you so much. And so the only, I'll just start with a question, then I have Dr. Moffitt and Ms. Bolton can ask whatever they would like. You said it was about 5 years ago that these came up in policy. Was that when? That would have been when I was on it. Oh no, it was right before me.
Yeah, Ms. Hoffman led that effort in policy.
Okay.
But yeah, it looks like.
Yeah, 2016.
Yeah.
15. Yep. Okay.
All of them were 2015 for the high school one, but
2015, yeah.
Okay. That's the only question I had for now. Dr. Moffitt?
no, I don't have any questions, but I do have, it makes me pause, but I don't exactly know what my question is around it, but I will have some.
Okay.
Because I just think we need to spend a little bit of time reviewing them to make sure that A, they're still applicable, and B, moving forward,
Yeah.
that they remain equitable.
Yep.
And so it bothers me on a little level because with the pandemic, we've had some questions around things, and I just want to make sure that they're still. So I don't want to rush the process. I want to make sure that it's not another 5 years before we're looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And at this moment, I don't have anything to add to the question.
Well, I would suggest before we get to Ms. Bolton, because I feel similarly, before we get to Ms. Bolton's comments and questions, that, for homework, us 3 take these, go through them, bring back questions, comments, concerns at our next meeting.
Okay.
But yeah, I feel the same way. So, Ms. Bolton?
Yeah, I totally support that. This really makes a big difference, and very frankly, it's quite possible that the vision of the board and the district itself has changed since 2015 or what have you, because these are pre our equity policy, I believe certainly our anti-racism policy. I think is, if General Counsel can correct me if I'm wrong, but also the last time perhaps we spent some time on this, we spent it based upon the creation of CANS. And before that, we were talking in terms of how we got rid of the campouts at Fairview. So we've approached these big things like enrollment on a very segmented or fragmented or partial approach instead of a more comprehensive approach. I think I think you're right. We're going to be spending some time on it. Most of my questions, I know we're trying to clear out the transportation, the last transportation one, and we've got that under other business, and I'll defer on that for a little bit. But I do, if it's okay with you, I have a lot of questions or issues regarding the high school piece, but some on the other 2 as well, if that's all right, if we can see what you guys are doing, maybe initiate some discussion.
Let's do it.
Let's start with even 511301, the preschool and elementary magnet school enrollment. And this is probably my sensitivity to this, but I even think the first paragraph shows bias of the district in looking at the neighborhood that may choose to enroll their children in the neighborhood schools assigned. It's like, well, you can do that if you don't want to do the other. It seems to me we should always lead with our neighborhood schools as a priority. And If you're not going to go to your neighborhood school, then of course we have these wonderful magnet and other opportunities. So I just think there's a little bit of a bias there. I also, following that number 4, students who have applied to open enroll into the district without a parent who is employed by the district, students enrolled in a magnet preschool program have the option to remain enrolled in that magnet school's kindergarten program without participating in the lottery process. Is that still the rule?
As far as I know, yes. In other words, if you are enrolled into a school's preschool, it's as if you're matriculating up. You don't have to reapply to the kindergarten.
And I think that's great. And I think we did that especially to try to build our preschool effort. So it was really kind of a recruitment and reward system. So I didn't know if that was still being practiced.
That's right. Yes.
Okay, that's the only 2 I had on that. But I just think that first paragraph, we should be emphasizing go to your neighborhood school, and then we also have these other opportunities. I won't do the high school one because that's longer. But if I could do the enrollment in neighborhood elementary schools, and this is not long, but I don't like the first sentence because it says the district assigns students in elementary schools consistent with the best interests of students and the best use of the resources of the district. I mean, that's so top down. That's so like we're telling you where you're going instead of based upon where you live or your neighborhood, blah, blah. I just think the tone of all of this is a little strange. And then I think in that enrollment within the neighborhood attendance area section, the last sentence, attendance areas within the district shall be reviewed as determined by the board and or the superintendent. I don't have that problem with board and or superintendent. I'm cool with that. But I do think that shows that we should be reviewing this to Dr. Moffitt's point was a while back since we did it. So I think this is I don't want anybody to question whether or not policy is supposed to be doing this or other committees are, or even if we have the right. And that was the reason I think we brought this up, if I recall, was the fact who does the lines, I think was the first question we asked. So we are supposed to do that. I'm cool with the next paragraph or so. And then it cites a couple of the other policies. Families, tenants area, district provided. Is this still true? If someone chooses, it says at the very end, number 4, if a family elects to enroll a student in a school outside of the family's neighborhood attendance area, and I like that use of the family's attendance area. That's a nice way of saying stuff. District provided transportation may or may not be available. Is that still practice?
Generally not available. The default would be the transportation outside of your neighborhood. Cases where a sibling may be getting, let's say, transportation because that's a special service in that student's IEP, and they're able to also bring this. The default, though, is that outside your neighborhood.
But that's not true if they're going to a magnet.
A magnet, you are provided.
Okay, so I think that.
Yes. Correct.
So it's if they attend another neighborhood school?
Correct. If you're attending a neighborhood school outside of your own family's neighborhood.
So that may, because they are provided if it's magnet. We're
magnet enrollment, you are provided.
Okay, can we make sure that's a little bit clearer there?
Well, I see that to me is discouraging neighborhood attendance. So I have a problem with that. In that we're given transportation if you choose a magnet and you live outside that neighborhood, but we're not giving transportation if you. I just think I want to make sure that our policies are not innately inequitable. And it sounds to me like they may be.
This is for neighborhood school outside. So if you live downtown and you're sending your kid to Westwood School, is what he's saying. It's for a neighborhood school outside your neighborhood. So to me, that's not encouraging. That's not encouraging neighborhood, because encouraging going to neighborhood school is going to the school in your neighborhood attendance boundaries.
But if you live downtown and your neighborhood school is Rothenburg, but you want to go to Westwood because your grandma lives in Westwood and that's where you would be after school. So you want to go to Westwood, you don't have transportation. Right. But if you chose to go to Gamble or a magnet school, you're going to get transportation. So to me, that is promoting you to not go to it's discouraging you to go to a neighborhood school, but it is encouraging you to go to a magnet school if the reason that you're going is because of transportation. So to me, that's
I hear you. I just think
too.
It is. I just don't know how that's tenable, because then kids could go anywhere, and it's already untenable, our transportation line item.
You're right.
So, but no, I hear you.
It's something to discuss.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
The idea, I think, it just put some context on the committee's thinking of that we have vacant spaces available in our neighborhood. Somebody outside of the neighborhood wants to take advantage. We should offer those in district before opening it up to, let's say, open enrollment out.
Gotcha.
But there is, transportation department is not here. I think they would have some concern about you having a responsibility for transporting students to whatever school outside of their neighborhood. If there may be a good reason your grandmother lives in that neighborhood, where your parents went there, but that opens up a lot more transportation.
It really does. And that's what I need to spend some time with, because that actually happened to me. My kids were going to Pleasant Hill because their grandmother lived in College Hill, but we live in Avondale. Yeah. So and we got no transportation. We had to take them all the time. So at the time I thought, well, you know what? Okay, this is what it is. But when you look at it from a policy standpoint, it's like, well, that's not fair. But if I had chosen to send them to a magnet school, they would get transportation. So you're discouraging them to go to a neighborhood school if transportation is the issue, which most of the time for our kids it is. So that was just an example of what I think we probably, and can we get some data too around
how many kids it is?
Yeah. I mean, I know some of our neighborhood schools are kind of suffering from an enrollment standpoint.
Yeah.
Now, of course, this is null and void when it comes to McKinney-Vento kids.
And foster care.
Yeah.
Which is called out in separate policies. I just want to highlight that for everybody.
Gotcha. I'm sorry, Eve, I didn't mean that.
Oh,
it's all good. It's all
Great.
good. This is good.
This
is why it's on here.
That's exactly right. And I think that we have to have probably have to expedite action, certainly not today, but before very much more into the year, if we want to make these changes impacting whatever that new transportation plan is going to be. So I think this is great. I'm on the high school one now, if nobody has any more about the other two.
Can I just make an observation based on Board Member Morawski's question about when these policies were reviewed, combined with Board Member Bolton and Moffitt's comments about sort of the tone about neighborhood schools? It just struck me that these policies were updated before Vision 2020, which put a new focus on neighborhood schools. So I do think we think about neighborhood schools differently than we did in 2015-16. So just an observation.
And I appreciate you saying that. And I will also say the board made us start thinking differently about it, because not only because of the transportation problem, and the idea too that we were being perceived as you have the neighborhood schools and then CPS has magnets. And it's always been, sort of like how West Siders feel about the district versus what East Siders may feel about the district. So I think there is this tone, and then we made a new commitment. I think you're great to mention Vision 2020 as part of that. That's good. That's why we're doing it. Super. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The high school one, 5113-03, first paragraph. At least if Superintendent Mitchell took action on this, we do not have Paideia schools anymore. They did an audit of curriculum and they were not happening. It might be on the front of the building, and there might be wonderful teachers. I'm a Padea teacher myself, and I believe firmly in it, but it's not truth in lending anymore. So that would need to be struck. And I would try to move the career piece that's mentioned a little bit lower in that, I think, that paragraph, because the career piece is not exclusive, like SCPA or Walnut. There's not those sorts of special admittance to any of our career paths necessarily. I mean, I don't believe so, and I don't think they've made that a new practice as they've expanded it. So that technical programs and dual enrollment coursework, all that, the career needs to be part of the earlier sentence, I think, rather than the more exclusive ones. And this will come as a shock, and the last person that understood this is no longer on the board. High schools of choice, except in this very weird policy, have never been viewed, never been established as magnet schools. They are not magnet, and because they are not magnet, they cannot exclusively, unless they are, I think the Montessori's, I don't even know if they're viewed as magnets technically, but those, they cannot say you can't come here.
Yeah,
And high schools everywhere in this district actually think that they have the right to have kids not go to their school. And they don't, regardless of the capacity.
So there's, I agree, they are not magnets. We don't view them as magnets when we're asked about them by ODE or OHSA. I mean, not describe our high school choice. There's still a priority of enrollment that the board established in this policy.
Not questioning that,
Okay.
but the idea that you get to the priority of enrollment based upon somebody saying what the capacity is, and there's not a capacity. I mean, that the children live in the district, they can go to the high school that they can go. I think the range of choices is unsustainable. But there's a mentality out there, and that, I mean, I see it with my own alma mater. Well, no, we don't have any more room. Or Hughes, oh no, we only have this number of seats. No, you don't. And that has been cramping our growth greatly. It also means that, you know, again, especially since we don't have attendance boundaries for these high schools. Mm-hmm. Which, you know, that's another discussion. It'll take us a year or so to figure that one out. But I would just say that to participate in the schools of choice program, the student must meet the enrollment requirements of the districts. No. What's the enrollment requirement at Hughes? You know, the 1,000 kids that are there are not all STEM kids, but they've chosen that school. Did they have to pass a STEM course? No. So I think that whole paragraph needs to kind of be reviewed as to especially the action that occurred, I think, during the Mitchell superintendency.
Well, to your point, I think it needs to be reviewed and then publicized because
yes,
some of our, rightfully so, but some of our admin and our parents don't recognize that what you just said at all is
bingo,
that they don't have a requirement. So as far as admission, some people feel like, well, you know, I'm at capacity and I'm turning people away. I have a wait list. And it's like, well, technically you shouldn't. Mm-hmm. And if they don't know that, then that's impacting our enrollment too. So we definitely need to revise it. We definitely need to publicize it. That to me is also collecting that data that I'm specifically looking for, because when we visited schools, I heard some administrators say that they have a wait list. So if they think that they have a wait list, but whatever, I didn't push back because I did not know, but they are saying that they have a wait list, students. So we need to get that data. Please let them know. It's not to make them in trouble, but it is to kind of find out what is your true enrollment what is your potential enrollment? And then I also want to tie that to capacity, because I know Hughes is at capacity. And is that why they have a wait list? Maybe they have a wait list because they can't take any more kids. I think you and I
I am
spoke about
totally
this. Steve.
there. Yeah,
I think we
yeah.
talked about this because they're
have.
not even using part of their building.
That's right.
Because they can't. It has to be reconstructed.
Yeah.
Well,
It's like whether it's the annex or
Yeah, it's the
whatever.
annex.
And if you go back, and part of it is because of the special needs kids and the special units and all this other stuff that we do now that wasn't happening. You can ask anybody that's probably 30, but certainly 40 and above. Well, I don't know. There were 2,500 kids at Woodward in the old building, and now so it's so the capacity piece is there. But but you're right. People, they can't turn people away.
So I think, is there anything else with this, or Dan, do you want to respond? You look like you want to respond.
Just briefly.
No, you're fine.
The only schools and the only board policy that establishes any kind of entrance criteria for schools is in this same policy as it relates to the entrance examination at Bolton, the audition process at SCPA, and the entrance exam at Dayton, special college prep.
Right.
That's the only requirements to enter any of our high schools, and I don't think any of our high schools would say that differently. What they would say, and what I am anxious to explore is that there is some capacity, and whether that's dictated by space, not always, whether it's dictated by staffing.
Mm-hmm.
So what ODE would say about our schools, and has said to us actually in an audit, that we should be establishing capacity limits. The reason for that, of course, is so that if a family comes in and would like to enroll, you're not saying to one family, no room at the end, and the next family that comes in, say, come on, we have room. You want to have an objective way of establishing a capacity limit. That's what ODE would say. But what we have responded to that is that that's very difficult and somewhat fluid, because it's not just based on space. People will often say that Walnut Hills is beyond capacity. Space-wise, they're not. They're not violating fire limits or anything like that. They have space. But there certainly is limitations that they have on enrollment, and that our other schools have as well. And that can be dictated by classroom space. It can be dictated by staff. You can add staff, though. So I am anxious to explore what the board would like to see as capacity limits. And I think our schools would welcome that as well. There should not be any schools saying, other than these three, saying that there is a requirement to enter our school, even our Montessori. But what they would say is, this is what we've, without a lot of guidance from us or the board, this is what our capacity is this year, and we have a priority for who gets in. And our priority is set by board policy, and it starts for Montessori schools with students who have attended that course of study. So it would not surprise me that families here, or that schools even say, in order to get in, you have to go to a Montessori school. It's not true, but the priority is they're not going to get beyond those top priorities. So that's my piece.
I know that the chair wants to move on, and we have to, so maybe for future discussion we can save some more of this, but I would like to, without talking about it, I do have a question, and just as topics in the same policy. This priority for non-CPS schools, resident students attending a non-CPS school, they've got some priority that seems higher than some other folks.
Yes.
And I think that is very strange. So that's like in 3 and 4, and it appears elsewhere. And then the other again, under 10 is the whole resident piece. But at the end, Walnut, SCPA, got it. I do think that we have eliminated, maybe the schools haven't, but again, left over from Mitchell Superintendency, our concept was that all of our students and all of our schools have some college preparatory opportunity. So it is wrong for elementaries to claim, and there are still 3 or 4 or 6 elementaries that are claiming that they have some sort of special college preparatory program, and I'm not sure that they actually do. And I don't know if there's still practice about data. Come on. And then, it's difficult to change. And then there's something here about recently moved to the district. So all those last paragraphs, but at the time of the application, students select 5 high schools listing the selections in order of preference. If the enrollment at first choice of school is at capacity. So that whole last paragraph is crazy too. But I remember we were all in that particular frame of mind. To Dan's point, we've changed. We can't actually have growth as a fifth part of your strategic plan if you are finding ways not to.
Well, I think this is a good, more than a tee up, I would say. So if you want to bring some of these back, Dan, next time with some of the suggestions that we've heard here already, and then we can take these back, bring any more suggestions we might have next time. The only thing I would ask, and it probably an easy yes or no, maybe not, would it be, in your opinion, important to have, because we've called out some specific high schools here, would it be, excuse me, again, in light of things being very, very different now than they were when this was last looked at, and then COVID has made them even more different than that, would it be pertinent to call out CDA in here as unique in some respects, or do you feel that it kind of is covered by the choice bit? Because it feels like CDA might be different. I don't know.
So we've been having discussions with them. They have an interest in, just to tee up that topic.
Yeah, let's do it.
CDA, over the course of the COVID, has, first of all, grown immensely. They've gone from a school of about during 2000.
Crazy.
That's what they said.
It's wild.
Initially, it was thought that enrollment would subside.
Yeah.
But I don't think it will.
No.
And nor does the school.
Nope.
So that's partly on us to make sure we're still not staffing them like a school of the size that they are.
Yeah.
What the other piece related to CDA that I would tee up for your consideration is it was important to the board that students and families be allowed to kind of freely transfer in and out of CDA kind of whenever they wanted. And that's what we've followed. That creates a lot of chaos for not only CDA, but really the other schools as well, because, and so what they've proposed is and this is still kind of being worked through, but what they've proposed is CDA is always a school that has taken anyone. They will take any kid.
There we go.
But they're asking whether perhaps they could take any kid, let's say a high school kid, at the beginning of the year and at the semester, as opposed to
in the middle
every day, which is what they're dealing with.
Sure, yeah.
That makes sense.
At the elementary level, I think they say every quarter, so every quarter you'd have the opportunity. So that's one thing. The last thing I'd say for CDA is you mentioned it earlier, the board, this policy committee talked about perhaps opening CDA up outside of it. Really, there's no reason that a kid from Cleveland
Absolutely.
CDA.
Yep.
So, those are some of the topics that are specific.
That'd be great. And if they want to give a presentation to us, or if you want to be liaison, I don't particularly care, but I think it's maybe something we should talk about soon.
We'd love that. And
Great.
I'm sure Eric Rozier, the principal, would be very
Awesome. Well, let's get it on. Phyllis, we'll have that on the agenda next month too, so we can continue the policies regarding the enrollment, and then we can have a separate discussion about CDA. Great. Cool.
On the CDA, I know too that there's still that issue, and it has to be separate supposedly, but it would seem to me that it makes sense to consolidate the upper grades of 9 through 12 that are in virtual high school.
They now have 2 IRNs, which is odd, but per state law.
Yeah.
Per state law, so that if we got rid of one and assumed the other, because that just is ridiculous. That's so confusing.
Yeah.
I think they did that because of COVID. Like they had to rush and do that because of COVID.
That's another issue for CDA, if we could think about that.
Dr. Moffitt?
I just would really like to see some data, if possible, just to give some context on capacity, staffing. And I also am very interested in, if we do accept students who are not within our footprint of Cincinnati, are we charging them to come to our specifically like our performing arts and our so from a financial standpoint, how does that look? And I'm not saying that we should. I'm not. Please don't hear that. I'm saying
I am. I think we should.
What is the impact of that? Because I know that
pay.
there is a financial impact to open enrollment. But I'd like to
Explain why.
understand what other districts are doing. Because, hey, you can go to Princeton, you can go to Sycamore. I don't know if that's free.
Can't go to Sycamore.
No, you
So
can't.
districts
Okay.
can establish, I don't think.
I thought some districts had open
Listen,
enrollment.
They do.
And
but
I know some of them do because we have students who are going to Winton Woods
Oh, yeah.
simply because they want to go to the Oaks. And so we've got a large number of students who are leaving our district only because we're not offering something. And I'm wondering, are they paying for that?
So districts can establish one of three enrollment policies. One is to be a closed district. We're not open to any outside students. The Sycamores, Indian Hills, Madeiras, Mariemonts are closed districts. You can't get in outside of the district. You can be a tuition-paying district where you will allow students from outside of your district, but they pay tuition. CPS used to be a tuition pay.
Okay.
So you could attend, but you had to pay tuition. I'll just say, practically, that was somewhat difficult to enforce sometimes, but that is the way we used to be. The third option is to be an open enrolled district, and you can either be open enrolled just to your immediately adjacent districts or to any district in the state. And we are currently an open enrolled to any state. So our districts like Three Rivers, I think you mentioned Winton Woods, that would make sense. Some of those districts surrounding us are open, and we lose some students. We also gain some students. Sure. When you're open enrolled, you get the state share that district would get for that kid. Is roughly how I understand it. So instead of if a Sycamore kid, you mentioned Sycamore, decides to come to CPS, instead of Sycamore getting their state share payment, that's transferred to our budget. Okay. So we are getting some income for that student. Local share though is borne by our taxpayers. So it's not a perfect system.
Yes.
We did some on the finances surrounding that, but it may be worthwhile bringing that up at some point.
I think we did that.
Yeah, we had some discussion.
Reasonable,
Yeah.
but maybe not with that. Yeah, I think
Within
that's a good point.
Within the past couple of years.
Yeah, I think so. But it's needed. I think it was.
I just think if we're having this conversation, which we need
Get
to
all the
have,
data.
let's bring in transportation and look at that. Let's look at the financials.
Yeah.
Let's look at the data so that we can make an informed adjustment to the policy. I'd even be curious to ask the principals, what their feedback is, so that we can make these decisions not in a vacuum, but with some true meat. That's just my personal.
No, it's good.
It is good, and I appreciate you bringing this up. This notably comes up every year in policy, and I am notably always a fan of not being open enrollment and closing the lines. However, we did last year when Ben was on policy committee, President Lindy, we looked at whether or not we were actually gaining money through this process or losing money. I think we're still getting a little bit extra, but it's not a ton. That we're losing money now. So
We disagreed about that. Sorry.
yeah, no, it's all good. But one thing but it's notable. The only thing I want to add, and then we're going to go to Kilgore, so y'all don't have to stay here. I'm sorry, I didn't do this first. And then we'll go to social media policy, but we're going to move on after this. But notably, and I want to bring this up, when we were talking last year, I had asked if it was possible to have open enrollment for a program. That's it. And I was thinking of CDA, for example, people in Cleveland want, because our CDA, Cincinnati Digital Academy, for those paying attention at home who may not know our acronyms, CDA is second to none in the state, and people want to be a part of it. And the answer was yes, we could do that. We could have everything closed to the taxpayers of the school district except for that one program, which I still think could be interesting. But sounds like we're talking about it again, which I don't think is bad in light of all these policies. So I appreciate you bringing it up. But we are going to move on unless there's something that has to be said by anybody.
The only thing that has to be said is there's some degree of urgency if this is going to impact the budget.
Yes.
Indeed. Also a board dialogue and
Yes.
community dialogue.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm specifically looking at how many students are in performing arts and Walnut Hills that are not in the district. I just want to be very clear. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
One more time.
Yeah.
Number
How
of-
many students in Walnut Hills and performing arts that are not in our district?
And there was other data, though, that you wanted specific. So I want to make sure we have all of the data that Dr. Moffitt was requesting. So there was those two pieces, but then it was also what?
It was the data on the limits of schools,
Okay.
the capacity
Yeah, I think
at our
that's
schools.
Yep.
All of
Cool.
the high schools.
All high schools?
Well, all of the schools if you can get it,
All
but
schools.
specifically the high schools.
Okay.
They've got that. That shouldn't even be hard.
That shouldn't
I don't think it is either. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
If you're out of the district, we don't supply transportation to you.
Correct.
Correct. Again, unless you're
I-
homeless or.
Oh, of course.
Correct.
Hit it.
Good. All right.
Good.
All right, good. This is great. Excellent. So we will have attendance lines again. Jeremy, you didn't get to show off anything. Do you have any? Okay. Let's get Kilgore out of here.
Don't leave though. Don't leave though.
Yeah, don't leave. All right. Sorry,
I wanna
Kilgore.
see
Sorry,
him.
Patrick. We're gonna do this right now. I apologize, man. I got excited to talk about attendance boundary lines. That's how exciting my life is. So, baby shark and attendance lines. That's my life. Alcohol waiver for Kilgore. So we have the opportunity to pass a resolution
Sounds good.
to pass on to the board. Eve says sounds good. I think it's fine. Dr. Moffitt?
Yeah, I think
Sounds great. All right, we'll pass it on to the board. But Patrick, you're here, man. Let us know what you're doing.
Driving.
So I think is Angela. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm driving. I just wanted to make sure. I think Angela's on the phone too. I think. But
Yep.
so we have our annual carnival and 5K that we've done. But the last time we had these in person and did them was in 2019 due to COVID. So we're bringing them back a little bit stronger than better this year. 5Ks in person on Friday, May 13th, and the carnival or the 100-year celebration, which we're morphing it into the anniversary of Kilgore being open. We'll the 5K will kick that off, and then the festival will be on Saturday, the 14th. The last time we had this in person, we had the beer on the carnival, but the beer
You're frozen.
after
Oh, there
party, and since it's already there, and sell some beer. And then COVID hit, and we couldn't do it for 2 years. So we're doing that this year, selling some beer. We have a local brewery that we're gonna private label, rename some of the beers, and name them Kilgore and Birthday Bash or something like that. And then we actually have a band for Friday night after the Kilgore 5K. So we're gonna, run the 5K, have a band, have a community gathering, sell some beer, and then roll that into Saturday Carnival during the day.
Sounds like fun, Patrick. Thank you. And we're happy you all get to have your.
Who's the
So
principal?
hopefully you guys can all run it and join us.
Yeah, for sure. Would our Kilgore principal like to say a few words?
First, let me say thank you, Patrick, for joining the call. I see he's multitasking. And good morning, Board Member Moffitt, Morawski, Bolton, and Mr. Hoeing. So, one, we want to invite you out to our events. It is our honor for us to share. I'm super excited, also because we are celebrating our 100th, and we're trying our best to come into a full celebration with all of our school community. And as Patrick shared, both Friday and Saturday. This is a major fundraiser for our school community and helps us support our families in a different way. But this year, more importantly, 2 years of not having this opportunity has had us to think outside the box. So we're doing that, but we also want to have fun with our students to celebrate the way our school has been a leader in the community for years to come. So we hope with your approval, as well as your attendance, you'll have some time to join us at both events. I know Mr. Hoeing has been a part of our 5K. So I hope to see Dan out there again this year, but it's a walk or run. So you all can join me in walking if you don't want to run. So we have options there. We even have a kids run too. So we appreciate you all adding us to the agenda, and we graciously appreciate your support.
Thank you, Principal. So we will pass this on to the full board for passage. Right?
One
Question?
suggestion?
One suggestion, yeah.
The resolution should highlight the centennial of
Oh,
Kilgore.
Mhm.
Smart. Yeah, good idea.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the beers needs to be called Centennial.
That's it. Okay,
And
that's what
I
we're
have-
working on. Okay.
I have
That is a good
I had
suggestion.
one,
I'll take that back.
Right. Talk about getting in the weeds or hops. Or...
oh well, we can't. Yeah, there no
Oh,
no
yeah, that was
no,
a bad one. That was a
I
bad one.
loved it.
no resolution for getting in the weeds. Anyway, I have one very important question, Patrick. What's the brewery?
We're actually using 16 lots.
Cool, right on. That's awesome.
They're one of the smaller ones that would work with us for the kind of the beer that we wanted, and had a little bit of a connection to them. So we used
Cool.
Matcher in the past, but they were too busy for us. So
Cool.
16 lots.
Right on. And if you ever need musical acts in the future, you have my email. Feel free to hit me up. Other than that,
Awesome.
yeah, great. See you guys. Thank you so much, Kilgore.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Great, thank
Yeah.
you.
Have a great day.
Goodbye.
Cool. All right. So we are moving on back to our Title IX update that was requested to be on here by General Counsel.
Yes, and actually, this is Stephanie Scott's issue. She to be with us today and woke up with a pretty bad cold and still wanted to be on, and I said, send me some notes. So in short, Title IX is the federal law that prohibits sex-based discrimination in schools receiving federal funding. This is the same law that applies, of course, to colleges and universities, and that you hear about gender equity in college athletics. It applies equally to K-12 educational institutions that receive federal financial assistance, which we do, of course. There have been a significant number of changes from the Obama administration to the Trump administration, now to the Biden administration, especially on guidance, rules, and procedures applicable to investigation of sexual harassment or sexual assault kind of allegations. You hear a lot about this in post-secondary Title IX investigations. This has sort of been an exploding issue of for college and universities, General Counsel's office. But it is clear to us that we need some updating to our own policies, and that we need some outside expertise on this. We've had some discussions with Jason Stuckey at Bricker and Eckler. Jason's worked with us before on some other minor projects. Bricker is one of the best education law firms in the state, and one that we haven't used, probably have underutilized. And so with your agreement, we'd like Jason to take an in-depth look at our Title IX policies, and with their help, we hope, and then probably in a couple of months, we'll come back with some rather material changes to our Title IX policies. Just wanted to give you an update on that, and again, with your agreement, we'll move forward in that.
Right.
Questions on
That sounds good.
No, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
I do have a question. What do you anticipate? Do you think that we're like way off the cuff, or you think we'll just have to make some tweaks?
No, but we need a policy that it sets out all the procedures that are needed when there's an allegation. And again, this happens, these kind of allegations happen more routinely at colleges and universities. We don't get very many of those allegations, very fortunately.
Yeah.
But if we do, we want to make sure we have the right, again, I'm going to defer to Stephanie on this. She's looked into it and has said we need some outside help. But there's an investigation process. You're supposed to have an identified officer. There's an independent look at the allegations. So that's what we want to make sure we have those.
Okay.
All right. So we'll have that on the agenda for next month again, Dan?
Probably, we'll let you know.
Okay.
I would guess
All right.
it won't be ready yet next month.
Cool. And then we have 3 policies that are germane to our social media policies writ large, and Dr. Moffitt had asked that this be on the agenda, so I will turn it over to you.
So this is a concern for me. I've had the wonderful opportunity to speak to students specifically girls at some of the programs like Girls with Pearls and Girls to Women. And what I'm hearing is that TikTok is not only famous in the world, but it's also famous in our schools during the school day. It is being used to it is being used as an example. So in between classes or sometimes in class, a TikTok is posted, and then students respond via TikTok to the post, which leads in fighting. We've got some physical altercations. So my conversations on conflict resolution have turned into how to manage social media in the schools, specifically TikTok. And so what I shared with one Dr. Finney at Rockdale, that particular group of students, and I wanted to make sure this was accurate, that we do have a social media policy that they are not supposed to be posting during the school day. We can't take their phone, of course, but that there are consequences that principals, teachers can use to enforce not posting and or responding during the school day. So I think I wanted to make certain that I had actually seen the policy, that we had actually talked about it, and make any updates if necessary, because our schools are finding, from what I hear, that not just TikTok, but specifically social media is a concern. It's coming into our buildings. It is not the only cause of altercations, but it is definitely not alleviating them. It's fostering that. So what could we do? And that's why I wanted to pull the policies and to see. It's the 5136 cellular phones, 7550.01 use of electronic devices, 9125 social media policy for district employees. But specifically, whenever we make the revisions, it needs to get out to parents, it needs to get out to administration, it needs to get out to teachers and all of our staff so that they understand that they have some teeth from the district to be able to enforce this. I don't know, because I'm also concerned about discipline or discipline referrals. I don't know, I don't want to enforce a policy that increases discipline referrals. So that's really not the intention. I think we need to monitor all of this and not just look at things in a silo. But I do know that we need to hammer down our social media policies and enforcement for the upcoming year specifically.
And it sounds too, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it would also be encompassing of or harassment, bullying policies as well. And I'm going to ask Dan to correct me if I'm wrong too. So we affected the cell phone one not too long ago, and it's pretty good, I think, a few years ago. But in the harassment, bullying, it's inclusive of social media, is it not?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
All right. And so really, I mean, and again, Dr. Moffitt, I'm going to look to you to correct me if I'm wrong. Like we are essentially talking about ensuring that the school buildings know that they have recourse when this stuff is happening.
Mm-hmm. And I think specifically during the hours of school, because what I told the girls was, hey, it's a time date stamp. We can see when you post it. You give us that latitude when we see this. And so what is the consequence? If there are no consequences to the kids, they're going to keep doing it because the administration and the teachers didn't even realize that we had this policy, that it could be enforced. And then they asked the natural question, well, what do we give them? Do we give them days out? You know, what is that? Because it results in fights. What exactly is going on? And then we're having fights being filmed, and then they're on TikTok, which promotes the bullying piece. You know, so we have a bigger issue. I think it's evolving faster than what I think we're thinking as adults. So we need to think about it. Policy, which we have, enforcement, and then impact on education, academics to me.
So do you want any follow up with this? Would you like some follow up in light of like this administration, the schools getting this information so that they know? Or
I think I want to see what these are, and then we'll put it back on there for next month if possible. And I also would like to, I'd like to find out if the administrators even know that there is a policy, because I don't think that they do. So I don't know how we could collect that particular information. And are they seeing a rise in the violation of these potential policies? Like send them out the policy and say, hey, these are our policies currently that exist. What changes do you think need to happen based on what you see? And then are you seeing a huge violation that would impact discipline referrals?
Dan, you have some, or board member Williams?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think I think we should put these on the agenda for discussion. But I also think that administration should review the policies that should be impacting what's in the student handbook or whatever we're calling that now. Yes. And it says student achievement spent 2-3 years working on that. And I would think that that is more likely to be read and understood by sites, the principals and the kids, if indeed we are so, and that has to be, it's in the process of, if this is April, it's in the process of being written now. I think it would be great if a board policies really are not reprinted, but, and I think that is a thing that needs to be issued. It's hard to enforce,
Sure.
but I'm with you in the high schools and even in the elementaries. This is nobody's going out back and beating each other up or giving somebody a swirly or whatever you talk about, putting the kid's head in the toilet. That's old school, man. They're doing it this way, and it's actually more harmful. I mean, it really is bad. But also, administrators are leery of reporting too much because then they get ripped up because they've reported too many discipline issues. So we've set an impossible situation, almost unenforceable, but then also if you enforce it, you're in trouble too. So I think that we need a big discussion on this, and it's almost a community-wide discussion.
It is, and I don't know if the solution is removal, because I think the solution may be more restorative in practice, in that, hey, I just want them to report to me how much they're seeing this particular policy be violated, because I think that and it's not an issue of monitoring their discipline referrals. I want that to be clear as well, but I also want them to be honest in that they are seeing a huge uptick in this. It is impacting their bullying numbers, which would be a discipline referral. And then what are some possible consequences that we can help them from a policy standpoint, what is it that we could help you do to, I know that I spoke with some administrators and they said, well, we can't take their phones because then we would be liable if something happens to the phone. I completely get that. But what else can we do?
So social media is the prolific, the issue in student.
Totally.
And if you had Wayne Lane here, I don't know what he would say in terms of what percentage of hearings he have some genesis in social media, but I wouldn't be surprised if he said 75. I mean, it is in terms of monitoring, and actually when I saw social media on the agenda, I didn't know exactly what you wanted to talk about. So I included, for example, we have a pretty robust policy about employee social media communications, which we have a fair degree of control over in terms of when they're publicly speaking about CPS or our schools, some control. Students obviously have some First Amendment rights as well, particularly if they're speaking not during school time on social media or not on school devices. And our ability to regulate that is limited, as it should be, by First Amendment restraints. So this really is an area where it's a community conversation. This does then filter back to schools and cause disruption at school. Our question when we're looking at discipline issues is whether there's a nexus. So whether, if somebody says something on their own device overnight, about, is there some way that we can connect it back to creating a disruption in school? Then that's when our jurisdiction, if you will, do involve like the student support guide, the discipline process is triggered. If we can look at our policies, and actually I think it'd be a worthwhile exercise for us to study a little bit what other school districts see. We don't have a lot in our policies that relates specifically to school social media. The one thing you mentioned, the general rule is that students are allowed to have devices at school. They're not allowed to have them during instructional time on or used. So you're exactly right. When they are misused, we do sometimes confiscate devices. Have varying kind of how they handle that, but it is possible for schools to confiscate a device if it's being misused. The policy says that during non-instructional time, students may use their device. So
that's in between classes?
that would be in between classes, on the bus, things like that.
And just to be fully transparent, what happened was that someone posted it at night, threat to another student.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
The student responded during the day because it was a threat that they got during the school day. They responded in between classes, and so because they were sixth graders, I was like, you guys can't do that at all during the hours of 9 and 3, And they were like, okay, that sounds great. I can't do anything during school hours. No, what you do after school hours are different. But I didn't know if that was actually right.
It's actually, well, it depends.
Yeah.
If you're talking about a threat or you're talking about bullying and something that does have a disruption at school, we have and will invoke the discipline policy to say, yeah, this wasn't on a school computer, wasn't during school hours, but it had an impact on school because you threatened, let's say, to fight a student at school the next day, or there's bullying involved. So yes, that could invoke the discipline process. I would invite you to look at our student support guide. There are lots of, so category 1 offenses include inappropriate communication. That's on an electronic device. That's still a category 1 offense. Misuse of electronic communication devices. And then category 2 offenses would be, for example, it's a category 2 offense to use a device to depict or a depiction of prohibited conduct. So if you're a student that's filming a fight and posting that on TikTok, that's a violation of our conduct. Category 3 offenses would be, for example, like sexting and things like that, which is also, by the way, potentially a child pornography criminal violation. So it's throughout our student support guide as well. I think now that I know your focus is on student use, I'm glad to look at what other districts are doing.
Okay.
It may be worthwhile having Wayne Lane or somebody come and talk to the policy committee about what they're seeing.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Let's do that. We can do that next month.
Yeah.
If Wayne would like to come, that'd be great. We'll have a lot of visitors next month.
Well, we might not have enough time for visitors based on as many visitors.
Yeah.
It's
We'll
that
keep the
90-minute
visitors. We'll
It's good stuff. And
well, it
it's
is.
great
We can do
if
it
they
in
just
90 minutes.
work on it in the
These are
summer.
crucial
Yep.
issues.
These are.
Yes.
Anything else, Dr. Moffitt, on
No.
this one?
That was
That's
it.
good stuff.
Good. So for other business, we have some transportation issues. And for the 3 people watching, if any of you would like to speak during hearing of the public, please raise your hand now, and Rob will get to you and let us know your name, what you want to talk about, and if you would like a direct response from us, note that you would like someone to get back to you.
Policies that we were doing, or did I print the wrong stuff?
No, there are actually, you're right, Ms. Bolton. There are other policies here. I don't have it on my agenda, but there are other policies to look at, Dan, if you want to do those before we get to other business.
Whichever you want to prefer.
This one has the red line, so maybe that's what it is.
Let's do the other policies before we dive back into transportation and other business.
It'll be fast.
Yeah.
Sure. So 3161, which I'm going to try to bring up on the screen here. And 4161, these are 2 policies titled unrequested leave of absence. I've looked at both these policies. I think you should be able to see. I think they can both be rescinded. It refers to essentially the idea that if the district determines you're unable to perform your assigned job duties, in general, I mean, that may be true, but there are ADA rules that apply here that we follow. And I think both, I don't think there's any redeeming value in either policy. And that's all right.
Great. We'll get down to 300 before the end of Mr. Morosky's chairmanship.
Let's get rid of them. I got Dr. Moffitt, do you have an issue with that now? Yeah, we'll get like 6 policies is all we need. Great. So we'll move that forward to the board, and we got a couple others.
Yes. Next is 3170. We are, as you know, working through our employment policies, personnel policies. We have been combining our professional employee 3000 series with our 4000 series, which is classified employees. 3170 relates to substance abuse and basically shares that the district supports. If we have an employee who's having an issue with substance abuse, that generally we would refer for counseling and for treatment. Obviously they still have to meet the obligations of their job. So this is mostly cleanup. There's no substantive changes related to our substance abuse, employee substance abuse.
Okay.
Glad to answer any questions. We would recommend rescinding 4160, which is identical and relates to classified employees.
Good. Dr. Moffitt?
I'm good.
Let's move it ahead.
We'll move that forward. Next is 3210, which relates to employee ethics. So the red line here. Again, this is just cleanup. There's an employee ethics policy for professional employees and one for classified employees. States kind of best practices, some ethical duties to make sure that if you're buying items for the district, that you're making those purchases in the best interest of the district and not with advancing your own private economic interests, following the Ohio licensure code for our licensed employees, teachers, paras, security, coaches, etc. And refraining from using your position, for partisan political purposes. Recommend moving this forward and then rescinding the similar policy 42.
I have some reservations about this one, kind of with the attitude about ethics and professional standards, and kind of mixing good behavior. I mean, ethics, I think the root of all of that is it's a moral principles. It's the good kind of thing. I do think that good behavior is not just ethics. Ethics is a bigger word for me. But I wouldn't want to, if we think we should merge it. I think there are differences between those folks not difference between those folks, but different standards expected upon people. But I'm also happy to try to be egalitarian about it. But I think these are very different.
Dr. Moffitt?
No, I didn't see anything particularly wrong with it. I do look at H and E, or E and H, I should say them in order. I don't know. I think that it's unfortunate we have to say these things, but as I tell the students, things exist because we had to. So I don't have any particular problem with it.
I don't either. I want to honor Board Member Bolton's concern, though. Do you have a suggestion for, like?
If we're going to merge them, I think it has to be stronger and of higher purpose than not misuse of property. I think there's a tone to ethics that is not captured in how you behave and how you don't. And so I'm happy to merge them. Again, I'm happy to be egalitarian about it, but
Sure.
Make this higher virtue, so to speak.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I understand.
I mean, I'm being stickler or something, but
No, that makes sense. Ethics to me is more like, how you're treating kids in your classroom, or how you're going about grading, or I hear what you're saying.
yeah.
So we can merge them, but suggesting stronger
Yes.
language regarding.
You got it. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I move that we have greater umph.
Yeah. Second. Great.
Yes.
All in favor?
Yeah, I for that.
In favor of umph?
Love it.
Glad to do it. I'll bring it back.
Go.
Thank you.
Last one I have for you today is for the whistleblower. It really incorporates almost verbatim the Ohio Employee Whistleblower Statute. It's 3211. There's actually not a 4211 on this policy, but this policy, again, almost verbatim speaks to what's in the state law. Some parts of it I don't think are particularly well written, but
Thank you.
it is almost verbatim what's in Ohio Revised Code 4113.52.
I hate this thing.
Yeah.
It's poorly written. It's a lot of procedure instead of really trying to create a culture where if you see something, say something, and that you will be protected. And if, after we've now lived through a lot of people telling us somehow we've got this, weird culture here and whatever, I think you could do a better job than the people in Columbus when they wrote this crap. Pardon my language.
I'm glad to take a stab at it.
Right.
I agree. Among
It's
other
horrible.
reasons, I don't like saying that you have to report orally. I think the better word is verbally, and I went through the statute. But that's what the statute says, so I didn't touch it. I'd love to take it.
Please do, and make it really good, and protect the people that are the whistleblowers. Because frankly, you start making people write stuff down, and and I think you need to include in our whistleblower a higher role for our internal auditor or whatever her title is. We do not, this district does not use her as effectively as we should for stuff like that.
I just want to add to, I haven't seen a state policy, but when I hear of a whistleblower and a person that feels that they've been asked to do something unethically, I also would want them to be protected and then know that it's in confidence. So I don't get that tone from this, that you're being encouraged to say something competently and you will be protected from that. So from retaliation. So I don't know if we need to say something about that here. I don't really know, but I just know I didn't feel encouraged reading this that I would report something.
It's like they're protecting the bureaucracy.
Yeah. And I just think we really need to make it feel not warm and fuzzy, but that you're stepping forward is honored and respected and will be protected.
Glad to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
And I trust you, Dan. I think you'll do great.
Dan
It's like he
what I
wants
have.
to do it.
Dan always does great.
That's what I have for you this month. Getting through the 3,000, 4,000.
Heck yeah. Thank you, Dan. Great. So we'll bring us some new ones next time. We'll clean up some more. We'll get down to 6 policies and
Right.
we'll move it forward. So other business, transportation of students. We've been talking about this since I've been on the board. And I feel like Ms. Bolton said this in our larger board meeting the other day. It feels like we're getting somewhere, which is nice. And so transportation of students, we have 5 policies, one mega one. And so Ms. Bolton has been leading on this issue and sort of championing cleaning up these policies and making sure we're doing what we say we're doing. So I will turn it over to you to frame the conversation, and then we'll get after it.
I know we passed the board passed the other 2, and I think that was great.
That's right.
And we held this one back just to do the final tweaks, I believe, on this one. So it would be great to get this one out of committee today. My issue is the last bit that I have is that based upon this vendor that we might be looking at, that second paragraph where it says owned transportation services, a fleet of district owned. I'm glad we added that because I think there's a push to do that. But I think there's also a possible vendor of where that's offered by, to add these words, offered by individual vehicle vans, owners of individual vehicles, vans, or buses. There's some new vendor that they're using that sounds like it's very individualized. And at least to check with the transportation people, it's the one I think Connie keeps mentioning. It just sounds much more individualized. And I don't know what the language would be, but I would suggest that. And wherever we say that the K that we're required for K-8 to transport, I think they should add the phrase too. That's the PK kids with special needs, because we're required to do that as well.
Mhm.
And I don't know why I wrote the word magnet down somewhere, but I did. And then there's on number C3, maybe.
Connie is on if you want.
Oh, good.
Okay. Yeah, we can ask her. Let me get through this before
Yeah,
I lose it. The career, I think on C3, we have to add or career related. Students involved with co-curricular, extracurricular activities, or career related, because I think we'll be using that for that. And then the only other thing that I guess I was interested in is the healthy starts being, I know we added, and I appreciate you adding it, but there's also healthy starts for young people too, the little people. And someday we might be getting to that as well.
Okay, should I generalize? Would you
Yeah.
prefer this be more general, not
Yeah.
specific to
To
this
high-
resolution, but to the board's?
Whatever. Yeah. She's like,
Mhm.
Got it. I got those notes.
may I ask Connie a question?
You may. Yeah, for sure. Go for it.
Hey, Connie.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
we can.
I'm sorry. I'm in the hospital waiting room for my mom. So
I know. Is she doing better? Have they started or?
they did, yeah. She's here for her checkup, but I can't take my mask off.
That's great. Not a problem. I
Okay.
had a question. And there's some vendor, the new vendor that you were pretty excited about.
Yes,
And is that vendor offering much more individualized service than we normally
absolutely.
have?
Yeah, so they can do single rides. They can take siblings. It's called Hop, Skip, Drive. And the company, vets their employees, several layers of degrees. So what we can use them for is kind of like right on the spot, as soon as we get notice of a student who's going to be placed in a foster home or homeless, we don't have to
Right.
wait 2 weeks. Yeah, we can get a transportation for them right away.
So my suggestion on the policy piece here on this last of our big transportation policies was that Dan might add something that somehow sort of says that's okay too, that kind of service. And I don't know, Dan, if you think it's already sort of covered somewhere, but it just seems so different. If then maybe that would be great.
You're suggesting adding just some sort of like it would also be accessible or acceptable if X, Y, and Z type of service,
Boom.
ride sharing type. I just said ride share. We're not doing, but I'd like
That's
include that
great.
in there so we don't have to always go
Perfect.
back to this.
Right.
Yeah.
Because this will be, it's 1945, I think, the last time we looked at
Yeah,
this.
it's real different now. That's right.
Oh, wow.
That's right. 1944. Right on.
That's so sad.
I want to make sure Ms. Bolton is good, and then I'm going to get to Dr. Moffitt. Are we good, Ms. Bolton?
Yes, and I appreciate the committee's tolerance of doing this, and it's spending so much time, but with the transportation policies that we had, I can see how one of the reasons we got so screwed up
Yep.
was that we had really bad policy, and I know people like to keep us up 30,000 feet. Well, policy is 30,000 feet.
Yep.
So now we've set the tone.
I don't have anything to add. Thank you so much for leading this work. It's much needed, as you shared, and it's much appreciated.
Thank you.
So with this minor revision, Dan, we can move this forward to the full board.
Yes.
A couple open questions while Connie's still on.
Go for it.
Oh,
There was
good.
this notion of, or one suggestion was reducing or trying to put a hard limit on the ride time for yellow bus students, moving that from 75 to 55 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I think Connie would say that based on the studies they've done, there were some routes that exceeded that. And there was a concern about that that significant of a reduction. Connie, do you want to say anything about that?
Yes, so although we have 96% of our kids who are riding less than 55 minutes, we do have the older kids. We have a few of them that is going to take longer than that. But I think the max anyone's riding right now is 76 minutes. So that would be my only concern is, especially if we're getting more information on this as far as who those kids are, how far they live from the school. But that's my only concern is that we do have kids who there's no way we can get them under 55 minutes because of how far they're living from the high school that they're attending.
I feel like somebody wants to say something.
I think you write policy for generalities, not for exceptions, and you can make some language that would provide for an exception. But that's, if everybody thinks they've got it's okay
That's
if
right.
everybody's 75 minutes.
Right.
Boom. It's what is that when you're trying to look forward or be
Proactive.
proactive?
Yeah.
Aspirational.
Aspirationally
Yeah, baby, like
proactive.
that.
Proactively aspirational. That is your CPS policy committee.
Write that down.
I would suggest.
We need a button.
I would say we do need a button. I would suggest, and then I'm going to kick to you because you're better than me. Something to the effect of, I hear what you're saying, and I think it's right. And I would suggest something to the effect of G1, yellow bus student ride time should be less than 55 minutes unless untenable.
Yeah.
Something very
I
simple,
gotcha.
like 2 words.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, if that's,
Yeah.
Sounds good.
that makes sense. Cool thing.
Anything else, Connie, that you want to
Yes, the one number 3.
Number 3.
About that they have to be within 15 minutes. We're not going to, for the majority, it will be the same. We could do that, but some of them are at like 20 minutes. We even have one at 30, just right under 30 minutes. And so I was wondering if we could just keep within what the law says of 30 minutes, because we can't do that for everybody, especially some of our non-pub and charter schools. I mean, I don't mind it saying within 15 minutes, unless you can't. I mean, like you did with number 1.
Yeah.
Aspirational.
Right. And the policy, Connie, are you talking about letter G, number 3?
Yes, sir.
Currently, the red line says 30 minutes.
Yeah, but it said 15 minutes before. The red said 15. I think we just changed it to 30 as a suggestion. Oh,
But 30 would be
Is 30 what you
30
want?
would be more preferable, though, right? That's what you're saying? Is that right?
yes, that's within
Right.
the law, and that is more attainable.
Yeah,
I think she's saying that. I think she's
that's charter people.
I think she's explaining why
Yeah.
she changed it.
Yeah,
You're okay with that? That is
Yes.
what the
that's
law says.
and it's about charter. Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay. And the word within covers it to me,
Mhm.
within 30.
Yes.
All right.
Good.
I'm with you.
Cool. So we'll move that one to the full board with that minor revision. Does that work for Dr. Moffitt as Bolton?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yay.
Is there any other business that was not on the agenda that someone in this committee would like to bring up? Perhaps tee something up for the next time or address something that we didn't? Now's your time.
I would limit what we're doing that may impact our budget and our staffing and our planning, because some of this is not going to be 2 more years of discussion. It could be done now. So I think that's what I would probably be thinking. And are there any, do you have any public statements?
Oh,
You're good. Yeah,
you mean hearing of the public?
yeah.
I don't know. No, we don't. So we have 6 minutes or.
Well, it's just 6 minutes. I don't know if Jeremy had any pictures to show us.
I've heard a little board. I did have some things that there've been some general questions and things following up, regarding the neighborhood schools overlapping the boundaries.
Oh, cool.
with The neighborhood boundaries from the city. I had like 4 or 5 things. If we wanted to look at
Can we
real
do
quick,
that?
totally defer to the will.
You got 5 minutes. Let's do it, Jeremy.
Yeah, baby.
You can get it in.
5
you can
minutes,
get it
a
in.
minute, and 15 seconds per slide.
But then we can also put him on the.
Well, Jeremy's not going anywhere. He'll be here next time too, no
Yeah,
doubt.
that's what
Jeremy's
I'm
not
saying.
allowed to go
Jeremy
anywhere.
can-
That's right.
Yeah, I already confirmed he's not resigning, so.
So these are pictures. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, good,
Sorry,
good,
hopefully you
good.
can see them from that far away.
Yes.
There's Pleasant Hill
Kind
again.
of based on the conversation around the neighborhood schools, they said in the city's neighborhood boundaries, I looked at some areas that were of particular congestion and thought they would be good ones to look at around what they're looking at from comparing the two. So you can see the blue outline is the boundary, the attendance boundary for the school. This one is looking at Pleasant Hill, I believe. You can see it wraps through the College Hill neighborhood all the way around to the Winton Hills city neighborhood. The white lines are what denotes the neighborhood boundaries. So you can see there's quite a few more neighborhood boundaries technically than we have just as the attendance boundaries that overlaps. Next slide. This is a little bit closer up on Winton Hills, which doesn't show, but is basically encompassed there by what we were just looking at around College Hill. But you can see here, I thought of particular interest is Winton Terrace that runs south along Winesty there. Is just right next to Winton Hills, but actually wraps around to College Hill. So it just gives a good area. Like I said, that it's kind of a good example of our congested area where we get a lot of overlap.
You know what, Jeremy, let me stop you for 1 second. That particular, these two schools, the Winton Hills and Pleasant Hill, we have kids who literally live on the same street, different sides of the street, who could walk to Winton Hills but have to be bused to Pleasant Hill. And when I spoke with the principal, that is a problem because, and we really, that's an example of a school we really need to look at because it's just crazy. They're neighbors and some have to drive or be bused 1.5 miles, 2 miles, well, up the street.
Every bit.
And their neighbors across the street can walk to school. So this particular example is one where we really do need to look at the boundaries.
I agree with that.
And so continuing looking in that area, this is Mount Airy, where you can see it spans across the north side of Mount Airy's neighborhood school and the other half of the College Hill neighborhood area.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say, as a College Hillian on that one, things that are west of Hamilton are considered by our district as being Mount Airy, where even this district was referring to the College Hill Recreation Center, which is next to Aiken on Belmont. I spent several years here with people telling me about the Mount Airy Recreation Center, and there isn't one. What are you talking about? Finally, several years later, oh, you mean College Hill?
Yeah.
You cut College Hill in half, and then you tell people go to your neighborhood school. And it recently impacted on our vice president.
And it's a total mess. 2 more minutes. Keep going.
Go for it.
We know it's a mess, y'all. We're gonna take care of this year.
It.
We're gonna fix it. We have to.
We're gonna fix it this week.
Yeah, it's a mess.
And this just kind of rounds out that corner with Chase, showing where the Chase attendance boundaries are and how it finishes out that corner of the district, essentially.
So weird.
That is really unfortunate.
So,
When were these boundaries established? What year?
we'll talk about it next time.
Okay, well.
Do you have any idea?
No, I'm sorry. Yo, it's fine. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard rumors and speak of the number, but I honestly don't know
70s?
the exact number. But it's decades ago is what I've heard.
Mostly decades ago, although the treasurer does recall redoing some of these when she wasn't treasurer and as part of the FMP. But when I really drilled down with her about it, it seemed like she was referring to some of the most recent things we'd done.
Next one.
1 minute.
She would probably appreciate a clarification that she's not with us in the 70s. She was not.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this was recent.
She might want us to clarify that.
30 seconds. Love it.
Go for it.
The last one is just cans, as it does span the whole central corridor essentially, and it's broken up by the different attendance grades. So I added the dots onto this one so you could kind of see the various grades, so you could see where those grades fall into those various boundaries, because it is divided up.
Yeah.
You couldn't quite see the neighborhood boundaries real good because it had to be so big to get it onto a static map. You click it one more time, Ron. But this is kind of a zoomed in and stitched version where I took the north and the south side and stitched them together. So it's a little hard to see. It's small, but if you do zoom in, you can see the actual neighborhood labels behind there, so you can see all of the various neighborhoods that it overlaps with.
And this is the ideal. This is the ideal. This is cans. And this is when we also started to address
Mm-hmm.
some of those around that, because that we looked at the city neighborhoods. You and I think, Mike, you
We
looked
did.
at the Checos and everybody
Before
else.
I was on the board.
And there's three,
Yeah.
3 or 4 neighborhoods that encompasses.
That's right.
It's not just Clifton. It's also what used to be Spring Grove Village,
Yeah.
and it's all the ones up on the hill. And
And
there,
tough.
the transportation is not an issue, is it? Because they're neighborhood people.
Not nearly like, no.
Well, I think another problem with Cans as well, and speaking to their principal, people in the Spring Grove Village don't know that Cans is their school. They think that they had to go. Well, at that time, it was Winton Montessori. So I think a lot of this is
Communication.
also communication, which is unfortunate because they could just easily go up the hill and people don't know. So can you send this to us
Yeah,
electronically?
Are those dots at the top, is that Winton? Is that Spring Grove Village?
Yeah.
At the top, it would be
Yeah, I
north,
can't see
yeah.
But you
Should
expect
be-
us
it's
to,
around that
Jeremy.
area.
What's going on?
Yes, that is Spring Grove here at the top.
So
You
this,
don't have a lot.
this is awesome, Jeremy.
Really
This
good.
is one of the most exciting things I think that's coming out of this committee this year. And I'm gonna task us with, and we're a minute over, and that's okay. I'm gonna task us with us, Dr. Moffitt, Ms. Bolton, and myself, with your obviously leadership and help. I'm gonna task us with coming up with some kind of proposal by December. I think this needs to go to the
By
full board.
December?
Yeah, this year. I mean, if sooner, great, but this is big stuff. Like a proposal
By
for.
May, by the next meeting.
No. I'm talking about a proposal for attendance boundary lines instead of just keep talking about it.
Yeah.
Because this is serious. It's important. We have Jeremy here. He's provided this. Like, it makes sense to me, as per board policy, that we come up with some sort of proposal. And we can do this, obviously, with the community.
Mm-hmm.
However, at the end of the day, and I'm not want to talk like this frequently, but at the end of the day, this is our decision. And we have to decide this in the best interest of our students, first and foremost, our families, but then also our own budget. To your point about budgetary, this is a massive budget issue. We look at the transportation, again, people going every which way. I think we should make this one of our major goals this year. And because Jeremy, like, we know this stuff. I think if the rest of the board knew that we had access to this kind of information this easily, as opposed, no offense to Ms. Bolton.
That is why we propose the ad hoc.
That's why we have to have the ad hoc. And so in conjunction with this committee, that ad hoc committee needs to be chaired by somebody from this committee. And I think we need to have it on the full board agenda for, I don't know, is that a vote to create the ad hoc committee?
They pass the minutes.
Do it. I think we do
6-1.
I think we should definitely do it. I'm also interested in numbers.
Right.
Because I know with the Winton Hills and the Pleasant Hills enrollment is down. Winton Hills enrollment is okay. But what would that look like if we do reconfigure the boundaries for Pleasant Hills enrollment to increase? I don't know if we can look at it in that manner, but I think that we absolutely should.
Well, I
do
think,
that.
and I
Let's
think,
bring it back this next month.
and I think then we bring that back this next month. I think then that ad hoc committee that was approved through the passage of the minutes, 6-1, lead on that. It would make sense to me, somebody from here, not me, I'm taking myself out of the running, chair that ad hoc committee. It sounds like both of you are interested in being on it,
Why don't
actually.
Yeah.
So
And I think Mary
fine.
had expressed an interest in being on.
Great.
it.
I'll chair it if you
Ben
want
wants
to.
to.
Oh, you're gonna be. Oh, great. Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
there's a recommendation from the committee. I mean, if you want to do it, if you want to wait and do it,
Yeah,
another
I think we should
vote
have a
that's
vote on it
specific, but
that's
you are-
specific to that. I shared this I also think that I'm somewhat worried, growing number, particularly as we start the governance. This predates my time on the board,
Mhm.
but I understand. State and task. My understanding, reporting information. I'm happy to talk offline and figure it out together, but I just wanted
Let's
to
do that.
share where I am on that.
We can talk offline, we can figure it out together, and we can put it forward to a full vote of the board then, if we
Yeah,
want.
but I think it was demonstrated in the board meeting last time. There was great confusion among
Yeah.
and between committees
Yeah.
because we rushed through the committee reports where the real work of the board is actually occurring, is in committee. And there was, needed some clarification, but I'm more than happy to have the board decide it. But back on this particular topic,
Yep.
Mr. Chair, the board took action on this
Yep.
several years ago. Part of it was done and it was put in place when we created CANS. We talked about these boundary issues, especially to the doctor's position about Winton Hills. The reality is, I think we bring this section back. I think we also bring the section back on the east side that was worked on as well, and spend a little bit of time on that, and a lot of time too on what the doctor brought up, which was the social media piece and discipline piece,
Yep.
and maybe do less of some of this other cleanup and really
Great.
drill down.
So do we put it in the minutes? I'm wanting to understand procedurally. So do we put that we want to form a committee in the minutes and then we talk about it at the board meeting?
We put it in the last minutes, I think.
We'll put them in
and
these
we passed
minutes
it.
as well.
And then if we have a different, if the new board has a new way of operating or there's confusion, then we can take care of it in that discussion. It doesn't bother
So we
me.
talk about it to add it
But
at the board meeting. We'll be saying we want to form a committee.
If it's not going to happen in ad hoc, then the work can continue here. And what I figured out long ago is about all of this is that as we move forward, when you do have new boards come in, it's reasonable to relook at whatever's been the operational approach or the governance approach. But I also know that there's usually a combination of governance practices, and so it's a good discussion to have.
And yeah, it is. And we'll move on from this and
Yes.
adjourn the meeting after President Lindy.
30 seconds. I was going to say, I want to make sure that this.
Yep.
We have a cow this week.
Yep.
Very light. Where one of the presentations on an already light agenda was just canceled. So we could even talk about this Wednesday. I don't think it has to wait forever. And if that's helpful, just let me know.
Yeah, I think that's
And
great.
we can
Let's
use
talk
that
about
to
it
keep
Wednesday.
moving.
Let's talk about this ad hoc committee on Wednesday. And if the ad hoc committee, for whatever reason, doesn't come to fruition, then I'll just end where I began this part of the conversation, which is that then this committee needs to have some kind of goal about affecting these boundary lines by the end of this year, because this is really, really important. I've been talking about it for 5 years. I'm tired of talking about it, to be perfectly frank. We have Jeremy here, who I have never seen anybody make it this easy to visualize this in my life. And so I want to take advantage of that.
Or interactive so that we can make
it's
it
awesome.
better.
It's awesome.
Thank you, Jeremy.
So without any further business, rephrase, there is no further business. Is there further business?
Only further business.
Neither is further business.
You said it and you asked the question.
Only the finance will be ready to start in a second, but more particularly, this is not something that has to happen this year.
That's right.
But it has to be announced this year
That's-
to make it happen the following year.
And
So
there
it's
needs to be-
and it needs to be great. Whatever you're doing with the community involvement and
Yes.
stuff, everything gets grandfathered.
Yes.
And
And there-
we have to understand that, or you can't do any of this big
There
stuff.
has to be
But to your
some
point-
direction. A proposal might
Yeah.
be a heavy word, but there has to be some
I
direction.
like
Like this is what we're trying, right? This is what we're trying to affect, Doctor.
And I think to your point of wanting to take some action, we can really do some work in 6 months.
Totally.
I mean, it doesn't have to be projected for next year.
Totally.
The changes can happen, be effective for next year, but we can do some stuff
Oh, yeah.
significantly this year.
6
Now, let me ask a
Especially
question,
with
just a
Jeremy's
clarifying
help.
question. Are we forming or asking to form the ad hoc committee for boundaries and social media, or just
No,
boundaries?
just
Boundaries.
Boundaries. Okay.
This one issue. This is one issue.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I understand.
And it goes across committees.
I mean, this is
Yeah,
It
every
really,
committee.
it goes
It's every
to
committee.
finance,
Yes.
it goes to health and safety,
Student
it goes
achievement.
to student
It's every
achievement.
committee.
That's the
Okay.
justification for ad
So
hoc.
I was going to say, so that's what the ad hoc does,
Totally.
is it
Yeah.
crosses. So like our strategic planning ad hoc committee
Yeah.
Yeah.
would be because it crosses
Crosses
all
everything.
committees. Okay,
It's
gotcha.
essentially full board work. I mean, we could take up every single board, in my opinion, every single board meeting for an hour and a half with this, right? Like, because it's full board work, but it doesn't, we can't have time for that.
Gotcha.
And the
Gotcha.
reality is we've
We might.
established that the board has a role to play
That's
in
right.
boundary lines.
By
And we're
an
doing-
enormous role, yeah. So see what you did, Jeremy? This is,
Thank you, Jeremy.
5 minutes and Jeremy gets
Oh,
like
no,
15.
I'm a hard copy girl.
All
I
right,
want some
meeting
credit for
adjourned.
my bubbles.
Thanks,
I
y'all.
love it.